We'll get started with it. So we've got a lot of great playwrights. I'm going to start us off, and then you're going to get 5 brilliant people after me on this. So what we're going to do is do the 10-minute lessons. I'm setting my timer just as a heads up. I have given permission to everybody to call me and to call anybody else in our process if they extend past 12 minutes. So don't be freaked out if you start hearing some ringing, but I think we're all going to beat this. So without any further ado, we're going to get started as I post my bio in the chat. And you'll see everybody else's bio in the chat whenever we do this for each person's lesson. So I'm hitting my timer, and here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about co-writing from my time here. That's what I'm excited to bring to you today. And I'm going to start off with just recognizing why I'm talking about co-writing. I don't know what your experiences have been like as a writer whenever you create your processes, but I have learned when talking with many creators, many of them decline it as an option. And, sometimes it makes me wonder if they're like scared to, or if they're just too busy with their own ideas, or if they're afraid they don't collaborate well, things like that. And I get it. I've felt each of those things before. If anybody asks me if they're going to co-write with me today, I have my own reasons on why I'm not ready to agree to that immediately. But having done it before, I also want to recognize that if you've never co-written before, you're missing out. I encourage everybody to try it. My experience with it is I've co-written several times. In fact, it was the first way I started with playwriting, just, with a friend about mumble years ago. I guess that was about 17 years ago. Now that I'm saying that out loud, that is wild to think about. But beyond that, the main experience that I'm going to be speaking about is my time whenever I was co-writing a play called Raft. That was a full-length 1-act play. So what are you missing out on by not co-writing? My opinions on that it's great fun when it works. It always gives you an opportunity and a good way to spend time with an old friend, or to make a new friend if you're doing this with somebody you haven't known before. It's a great way to get to know somebody like that. I'll also mention, as writers, sometimes it's hard to get people to read your stuff. And so you have a built-in script reader with every edit you make if you have a co-writer. So that's really nice and encouraging in that sort of way. Also, another thing, we know how hard it is to be writers, right? Having a co-writer means you're doing half the work. Isn't that something? That means roughly half the writing. That means roughly half the editing. That means you can double up and get twice as much play submissions out there. Now, I will say, because it's half the work, it makes watching the show years later kind of scary, because you kind of forget what you didn't write, and you forget who wrote what. So that gets kind of wild, but it's exciting. It's really rewarding as well. So again, I encourage you to do it. Also, I'm going to mention this. It led to my best reviewed show as somebody that has been writing again for 17 years. This is a situation where whenever I co-wrote this with Carlin Thomas, this was in many ways the most successful show that I wrote, because one was my first Lort D experience for a stage reading. And then also I got more reviews for that show than all of my other shows combined. So one thing I'm going to do is post in the chat a few quotes that came from the press that we got on this. I'm doing this for 2 different reasons. One, I want you to see that this can open you up for some opportunities. If you've not done something like this before, that's something, possible. By all means, it's possible. The other thing that I'm doing right here is I want you to look at the names in the chat for each one of those quotes. You can disregard the quote if you want to, but like the names, you're going to see Tom Parkhill in the very first one. He is the artistic director for the Tennessee Stage Company and leading the longest running new play festival in Knoxville. All the other names, they review plays and they provide press for plays, new plays. My play is an example of that. So if you're ever looking to produce a play in Knoxville, you should record those names and have them on standby. So that is available for you now. Now, we've talked about kind of advocating for co-writing, but like, how do you do it, right? I've spent about 4 minutes leading up to this. Let's talk about that. The way we did it, we started off by just sharing a file on Google Docs, just trying to, click clack some words and see what made sense for us, until we decided, well, this is actually kind of a serious thing Carla and I has got going on. So what we did after that, Carlin did a great job where they found this program called Writer Duet. I'm also posting that in the chat for you. Writer Duet is a free program. I'm going to be a little bit more specific than that. Your first 3 scripts that you get with Writer Duet are free. Anything beyond that, you do have to start paying for the service. But the great thing about that program, it is built for people to be able to co-write easily. And so this worked out well because Carlin and I live in Arizona and Tennessee at the time that we were writing this. That is not easy under many circumstances do, but thank goodness technology allows that, right? So I recommend Writer Duet if you decide to get into co-writing. As far as tips on the co-writing process, I've got a few of them for you here. First things first, I recommend discovering an idea together. It's easier to for both of you to be able to own the idea in that sort of way. Sometimes if somebody has an idea and then you ask somebody else to help you with that idea, that's still co-writing. To me, sometimes that feels more like assisting, and that is totally valid. I just want to recognize that for me, I sometimes have a hardship with that about being able to jump in on somebody else's idea. But if I feel like I have ownership on an idea together with you, then I'm just as invested. The way we got the ownership together on this was that Carlin had this play idea. The way they told it was that they had an idea for a play called Raft, and I said that was great, and I know the perfect place for that to take place. And they said on a raft, because of course the name's Raft, and I am a smart aleck. I don't know if you know that about me. I said half-deflated bouncy castle, and we laughed at it. And together, that basically made the blurb for a show that we've kept ever since. Raft, a slice of life, a slice of life comedy about two friends stuck on a half-deflated bouncy castle in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Carlin made the title, I made the location, and together we had the premise, and we both owned that from there. I just recommend starting with something you create together for the ease of that. Beyond that, I also recommend getting started on the idea once you have one. Why wait, first of all? Some of you have heard me talk about failing faster and just trying to get to where it's at. But then beyond that, the jokes about the premise are fine. The conversations about the premise are worthy, right? But what does it look like when it's in black and white, when it's on paper? What is this? And so no idea by itself should be expected to stand just by its own. So go ahead and create a page or two and see how, one, you, a co-writer in it, like it, right? And then also share it with your co-writer and see how they respond to that. It'll give you a quicker sense if you are on the same page tone-wise, location-wise, things like that, than if you're just talking about it. Once you are at that space, you can then start editing lines and deciding what you do and don't like and moving forward from there. But go ahead and get started on it so you can get to the ideas in the co-writing. Trust is a huge thing. You need to trust a few different things. I recommend trusting that you won't always have the answers. An example that I had with co-writing Raft with Carlin was that they knew Harry Potter references and Jane Austen references and Lord of the Rings references that were sprinkled throughout that show. I very much don't know those references. My nerdiness is elsewhere. And it exists, don't get me wrong, but it's just not in those fields. And so I had to trust them for the references to make sure that they made sense. And sometimes I could watch a video and study things to, better understand and do some research. But also, this is somebody that already grew up with those and is deeply familiar. Why am I going to challenge that? Trust my co-writer there. And alternatively, on the other side of this coin, I had more playwriting and joke writing experience. And so while this person was also a writer in their own sense, doing a variety of platforms, they just hadn't really done playwriting in the same way before. And so they had to trust back to me. And that's what it took. We just had to lean on each other on that. You also have to trust what you both have in common. I recommend trusting whatever is the core element that each of you have on it. For Carlin and I, that was banter. We each bounce back and forth with each other in a way that I think works really well. And so, we kind of structured the show around that, a slice of life element that just allowed us to, converse with each other and tell a story along the way. That's where we found we vibed. Beyond that, also recommend communication, because disagreements are going to happen. They're going to happen when you think you have the answers. And when these disagreements happen, I encourage you to support anyway. I come from an improv background, so yes, and whenever you can. Something I never told Carlin, but I'm going to share with you today, and they can watch this video later, and it's fine. Something I never told Carlin was that there was never going to be a thing that they could suggest that I wouldn't cave in for if they wanted it enough. That does not go for everything in life, but it went for this play. It was equally their part of the script and my part of the script, so we had to find a way to come together. And Carlin would often agree with me first, thank goodness, but you just never know these things. There were certainly some times where we had to rewrite a bunch to try to figure out what we were going to do with this. We went back to the drawing board on some scenes late in the game multiple times, so expect that to be part of the work, and ultimately see where you land after those back and forth edits. There is a good video I'm going to post in the chat here that has a quote that I really like: "Strong views weakly held." And so I posted that in the chat. That video is mainly about video game design, but I recommend it for you if you wish to just get another sense of collaboration and another perspective on it. The last thing I'm going to say, because I'm just a little over my time as it is at the moment, forgive me, allow your co-writers space to give voice. And so I'm going to conclude this with a little statement that Carlin had prepared for me to share with you guys as my co-writer. Carlin's words are: be flexible, establish ways to communicate if you're feeling unheard, and be ready to let go of control. You're both on a ride together, but neither one of you has the wheel. Just embrace that. That's what makes co-writing fun. Trying to wrestle the steering wheel from each other is what can ruin the process entirely. Check in with each other regularly on your goals. Have they shifted as you write? Do the end games feel like they're shifting? Talk about it. And I'll leave you guys with that note. I hope you guys enjoy co-writing as you try that in the future. And all right, so thank you guys for that space to be able to talk with you about co-writing. Next up, we have the very first playwright that Next Rung Productions ever worked with in 2020, Jeannette Brown. Jeannette, if you want to come on up, come on up.
Yes, I'm live. Thank you, Harrison. Very good advice. I have been a co-writer on a play, and yes to everything you said.
You're very kind. Thank you. And so I'm excited for everybody to hear you because, one, got to work with you very first for the program, and I know you've got some great advice on dialogue ahead. But then beyond that, I know that you have another play coming up on March the 10th. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I just want you to know, if people are enjoying what you've got going on, that they can catch you online again here. So we're excited for this. All right. Well, if you're ready, I'll let you take it away, Jeannette.
I think I'm ready. I'm going to talk about dialogue in this section. If you're an advanced dialogue writer, please just consider this a refresher. To those of you who are not advanced dialogue writers, I hope you'll find something helpful in this. Sarah Rule, who knows a thing or two about writing plays, says, if it is true that there is nothing new under the sun, and that there are only 2 or 3 basic human stories worth telling, then the contribution of the playwright is not necessarily the story itself, but the way the story is told, word for word, how a word follows a word. It's possible to have a character who has no words. Mother Courage and the Miracle Worker come to mind. But for most plays, dialogue moves the action along. Basically, dialogue has 3 functions. It exposes character, it provides exposition, and it gives subtext. Dialogue reveals character. Primarily, dialogue tells the audience what the character wants, which is theoretically the purpose as well as the plot of the play. Dialogue exposes the character's flaws and how she masks those flaws. A character's dialogue lets the audience intuit the character's education, social status, upbringing, and other information without it actually being said. Dialogue is exposition. It provides information the audience needs to know without having a character announce it. There are many ways to do this. For example, have one character explain the situation to an ingenue, or introduce the new worker to the others and explain the business or whatever, who they are. Bring home a fiancée and introduce her to the parents. Have a journalist interview another character, have a cop interrogate someone, or put someone on the stand, put a witness on the stand. What we don't do is something clumsy like, you, as my brother, should remember. You both know he's your brother without having to say it. Here's a perfect example of using dialogue as exposition. Think of the journalist who, what, where, when, and why. Who's coming over? What's their name? You met them tonight, they're new. He's in the math department or something. He's young and he's blonde. He's good looking, well built. His wife's the mousy little type without any hips or anything. But why in hell do they have to come over here now? Because Daddy said we should be nice to them. That's why. Of course, I've just read you an abridged version of the first scene of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, but it is a master in exposition. Dialogue provides subtext by contrasting what is being said with what is being hidden. It's not the emotion being shown by the character, but the one underlying the dialogue. Consider the dialogue from a character whose only need is to keep another character from getting what she needs. The dialogue will hide the true intention. In this way, a character will speak or hide the truth, depending on how safe she feels in the situation. The gap between what the character says and what she means is the stuff of drama. Dialogue should sound believable. After you've made the dialogue fit the character's education, class, social rank, etc., consider using these techniques to make it sound like real people speaking. Have characters interrupt each other. Have the dialogue just trail off. Mamet is a great example. I don't know if you can see this, but he's just, ellipses after ellipses where nobody finishes a sentence, which drives the audience perhaps a little crazy, but the actors love it. Have the character forget what he or she is going to say, as Polonius does in Hamlet. What was I about to say? By the mass, I was going to say something. Where did I leave? As you can see, some of these tricks are time-tested. Use a pause or a beat to allow a character to collect her thoughts or to change the subject. Have one character ask a question and the other character not answer it, or answer a different one, or change the subject. Have the character buy time or withhold information by saying, what? Or maybe. Have a character restate or repeat what has just been said. Have a character avoid answering by saying, that reminds me, and trailing off onto another topic. Each character will have several different voices or tones depending on who they're talking with and their relationship to that character. For instance, you have a different tone talking with your parent than you do talking to your child or your boss, and a really different tone if you're trying to seduce someone. Also, the tone would change if the character is telling something or trying to ferret out information. Another example is the way a school principal would talk to a juvenile delinquent versus the way he would talk to the son of wealthy donors. This is sometimes referred to as ranking. Who is top dog in this conversation, and does that change later? As you use dialogue to convey information, use it to withhold information. The audience loves to solve, to put two and two together. They like to forecast, these two people will get together, or that one will get killed. The audience also loves to be wrong, to be tricked again and again. An example of withholding information is Paula Vogel's Pulitzer-winning play, How I Learned to Drive. The word incest or child molestation is never stated in the dialogue. One test of dialogue is to read it aloud and see where you stumble. Unintentional alliteration or repetition of words, awkward pacing, and other problems can be heard by reading aloud. You can read the dialogue into your phone or computer and play it back to see what you've got. When you're writing dialogue, please consider the actor. In The Designated Mourner by Wallace Shawn, there are 3 actors. The script, as you can see, is more soliloquy than dialogue. Poor Jack, he has page after page to read, to memorize, to speak to the audience. In Betrayal, also with 3 actors, Harold Pinter has them sniping at each other with 1 or 2 words. It's really snappy. He's also known for his pauses, so reading him can give you some good tricks. And finally, the saddest piece of advice I've ever read: don't give all the good lines to the character most like yourself. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Jeannette Brown. Thank you so much. And yeah, it was really fascinating to hear some of those quotes, especially to bring up Sarah Rule up front, because I guess it was about a year ago that we didn't get to see the show together, but I know we both saw that show in the waiting room, I believe it was called.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, that was fun. Just interesting to see how to tie these things to another playwright, and then also seeing that page with that full soliloquy. That person's writing. All right, and so man, that's amazing. All right, well, thank you again. And so, with this in mind, I have a playwright that is a little bit late in attending for the moment. Just it's hard for them to get to where they need to be right away, so forgive me. I'll need to call an audible here. Sherridan, Smee, are you available at the moment?
Yes, I am.
All
Can you
right,
hear
thank you. I'm sorry to put you on the spot with an audible here. Just a little bit of a shake-up here. Ladies and gentlemen, Sherridan Smee was our playwright that we worked with last year for 2022. Wrote a play called Home Base. So I forgot to mention Jeannette had written a play called Mutation, a stark Vietnam drama. And Sherridan wrote a dramedy about a high school class reunion. So we did that last year, and it was our first in-person event. So really had a great experience. I'm really glad that you are here for this. So, Sherridan, if you're ready, I'm going to let you take it away.
Absolutely. Can you all hear me well?
I can. Can anybody else jam their keyboard or whatever they want to say? Yes. All right, we got a yes. It's all you,
Awesome.
Sherridan.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to start, if everyone's all right with it, by using the little reaction buttons. Can you give me a thumbs up if you find it challenging to get to the end of your play? If you know what you're trying to do, you've got a beginning and a middle, but the end is gonna like come along when it comes. Okay. Okay. So then the second question is, do you know how many of you experience it when you know what your end is and you just don't know how to get there? Like we got to get to A to B, and what happens in the middle is the hard part. Less so? Okay. Either way, I think the point is that I've personally found it very difficult to fill in the gaps. I think that most writers are going to say that there are spaces where they have hiccups in the writing process. Like nobody wakes up in the morning and just has all of it planned out, every plot point, all the dialogue. I mean, if you do, I love that for you. We love that for you. But I don't think that that's necessarily the common experience. So I wanted to talk about waiting for the light bulb moment and how to be productive in that in between time. That said, everything I'm going to say is pretty vague because the point is, I don't know what you're missing. You probably don't know what you're missing. So take what I give you here, hopefully, and maybe you can apply it to your own personal situation. And hopefully it's not just too many metaphors to keep up with. All right, so whether you were searching for bigger plot points or even just the minutia of how to get a conversation to lead somewhere, we all experience those frustrating moments where something's missing. First, I want to prepare you with my 4 main points. I feel like I've got 4 little pieces of advice that could work together or maybe stand alone. Number 1 is lean in. Number 2 is don't force it. Number 3 is ask questions. And number 4 is when you know, you know. And as I was writing these, I sort of realized that it kind of sounded like dating advice, which I am no expert on, but we're going to lean into that metaphor. And I'm going to start with number 1, lean in. I encourage you to think of a light bulb moment as like a meet cute. You know, sometimes inspiration strikes when you least expect it. Sometimes you're going to fall in love out of the blue, but probably it's going to be more likely if your eyes are open and that's what you're searching for. So keep that tab open at all times, kind of have it like, you know, running in the background. I think that's the hard part as writers, is that we're excited about it. And so you want to just focus on it and like think about it all day long. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, but I definitely think that for me personally can lead to some sort of like, you get on the hamster wheel and it's just like neuroses. And I'm like, how do we find the balance of having this on my mind and letting like going with the flow, like letting it come to me as it will. And so that's how I come to don't force it. I feel like you've got to figure out how to sit with the discomfort of not necessarily knowing what comes next. So keep that tab open, but don't try to get a square peg to fit into a round hole. If you force something like that, the way that I am very inclined to do, you might find that it's not going to lead you to where you're actually ultimately trying to go. So it's all about like identifying what your target is, and that might be a feeling, or it might be an actual end plot point, something tangible. It might be being able to say a specific thought or a specific statement, having your characters have a dialogue that's important to you, just to have that conversation and ask those questions. I wrote, the puzzle doesn't look good if you've crammed all the wrong pieces into places that they weren't made to fit. And it becomes even harder to part with something that you've written after you've spent more time on it, saying like, oh, but I want this to work, so I'm going to edit and re-edit and re-edit. And maybe that can get you there. But I think it's important to remember the sunk cost fallacy, which I Googled, and I'm going to read you the quote. The sunk cost fallacy is our tendency to continue with something that we've invested money, effort, or time into, even if the current costs outweigh the benefits. So cut your losses. You got to know when to say, this ain't it, and something better is going to come to me. And that leads me to ask questions. Whether you think you've got something or you still totally don't have something, ask people about it. Say, this is my idea. This is the project I want to work on. Like, does this spark any interest in you? What are your thoughts? What are your perspectives on this concept? In college, I took a screenwriting class with Dr. Larson, and the best advice that he ever gave, in my humble opinion, was to tell everyone about what you're working on. Use the time stuck in an elevator to bug someone about your project. Give your elevator pitch to everyone that you meet. Even better, specifically ask people, give the elevator pitch about what's stumping you. For example, I ended up at a bar with a friend one night while I was working on home base, and 2 people that I didn't know were there with her. So I got to meet these 2 strangers, and somehow sort of like on topic and also kind of not, I kind of was like, let me throw in this question here. I asked everybody, what are your thoughts on the concept of karma? Because in my play, I was dealing with a scene where 4 of my characters talk about destiny and free will and God, or the supernatural, and how those things play together, if you believe them, if you don't believe them, and how they might affect your life if you do or do not believe in predestination or free will or God. And having this conversation with these 2 strangers about the concept of karma really gave me some perspectives, kind of like Jeannette was saying, that were voices that weren't my own. I was able to use that and create a dynamic conversation in my play with that hopefully, I think, utilized more than just my own personal opinion and perspective. So having those conversations with people about your whole play, about the whole idea, or even just about the smaller parts of it can be so useful. And I think one thing that I just sort of wanted to mention here, because it comes up a lot, at least in my life, for some reason, is the idea that people might take your ideas, like steal your ideas, like write your play. And I think that that's not very common. I think it's a fair way to feel, because this is your baby. You worked on it, you care about it, you're passionate about it. But I also think that the odds that you're going to run into somebody who takes your ideas and publishes the play that you were actually writing are so much slimmer than the odds that you're going to find somebody who has that connection, or knows how to get you to a publicist, or get you to somebody who wants to produce it. And even if not that, just somebody who is interested in what you're doing is going to be more beneficial than the fear of maybe somebody might steal my ideas. And all of that said is also keep in mind that you've got copies. You've been working on this with Harrison. You've got emails, you know, you've got your own paper trail to back you up. I think we don't need to like live in the fear of like, did you copyright it? It's okay. You're going to be okay. It's your idea. Nobody's going to write it the way you wrote it anyway. So you can lean in and let go of that. And so it's like, what do you have to lose? If you ask somebody their opinions, you can take or leave them. And that's where leads me to my final point of in any good relationship, when you know, there's going to be plenty of people who are happy to engage with your work and give you feedback. And some of it's going to be super helpful and some of it is not so much helpful. I mean, the reason we cast a wide net is so that what we're bringing in, we have the opportunity to find those nuggets that actually really work for us and really help us and inspire us. There's perspectives that you haven't heard of, or even maybe lines that you hadn't heard of. As I was talking in my last play too with my dad, he said something about the only reason anybody ever goes to a reunion is because of morbid curiosity. And I was like, that is a great one-liner. Can I use it? So, there's such good stuff to be found in just having those conversations that we have to not be afraid of it, knowing that it's your play. You're going to lead it to where it needs to go. You're going to know when it feels right, when it's done, when this is exactly what you were looking for. This is exactly what you were trying to do. So you can take all of that advice in, and the stuff that's not for you, just thank them and you can put it aside. And the stuff that is for you, hopefully that'll continue to inspire you and you can keep working with it. And when you know, you know. And so those light bulb moments will come. And if you can just sort of let go, as my favorite yoga instructors always say, it's your journey. This is your creation. And I think it's so exciting that we have so many different voices and opinions to get to hear and read. And thank you for letting me share my experience and share some of your time with me.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Sheridan. Very much enjoyed that. Two things I'm going to add is first of all, I'm not going to allow it here. We cannot mention Dr. Larson without one good hello. I'm not going to do his accent justice, but we got to get it in there. And then also, it's kind of funny to think about writing in the dating context because I have broken up with some of these plays that I've tried to write. It's like, I can't see you anymore. I can totally understand where you're coming from on that. So thank you again for that. And so next up, we have Grace Belt. Grace, are you available and ready?
I sure am.
Love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, Grace Belt, we're coming into the part of this event tonight where we're getting to the playwrights that we're working with this year. And so, while we've not had the full year together, I can tell you I've read some of Grace's stuff and gotten to work with her already. And I see that there's a lot of great stuff ahead. And so I'm so honored to have her on here. So, Grace, if you're ready, we'll let you take it from here.
Great. Okay. Before I launch in, everyone, either use your laptops, because I know that is a thing that you have right now in front of you, or a good old-fashioned piece of paper and a pencil, because I will be leading you through a little exercise that I'm really excited to share with you. This exercise was shared with me by a playwright called Rogelio Martinez, and I was pleasantly surprised by how this exercise really helps with idea generation, and especially when you're just up against that writer's block, like you have everything set aside and you have an hour to start working on some stuff, but nothing is coming out of your guts. So hopefully I can share this with you, and this is a great exercise for writers who have been writing for a long time, or for people who are brand spanking new. This is for you. Okay, so with your piece of paper and pencil, or the digital version, I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes. And the prompt, quite simply, is you're going to write 10 text messages that are all 10 words or less. I don't feel the need to provide any examples of what a text message would look like, as I'm sure that you receive lots of them throughout the day. But just don't overthink it. There's no right or wrong answer. But for the next 3 minutes, let's write down some text messages, 10 words or less. go. We've got about 1 minute and 30 seconds left. Right now, I will let you all know that it is totally fine that a text message can be 1 word, 2 words, or a couple of letters. Or emojis. Wrap it up for 10 seconds. And time. Okay, good job. You did the first part of this assignment. Maybe your page is filled with scribble scrabble. That's okay. Now, the next step of this exercise is to select 2 of your favorite text messages. They can be your favorite for any reason, and your least favorite text message that you hate. Go ahead and take 30 seconds to make those decisions right now. Okay. Make those decisions in the next 5 seconds. Okay, welcome to the final step. So these 3 text messages that you have circled are all on one character's phone. The next step that you have to do is this person has received these 3 text messages on their commute home from work. And then one character, one singular character who has received these is going to open up their journal at home and they're going to start writing. First, take time to give this character a name and say anything about them that you think can connect all of these 3 text messages. And then if you can, write in the first person so that you can start thinking about what this character is thinking. Okay, I'm gonna set the timer for 5 minutes. Just definitely try to get their name out, and 4 or 5 details or like journal entries. This will be quick, so let's go. If you are feeling totally lost, just try to find the name of this person. Yeah, don't overthink it. You all get A's. And start wrapping up in the next 30 seconds. Okay, time's up. I hope that was fun for you. I hope that just at the very least got your pencils just making letters on a piece of paper. This exercise is kind of awesome in that it pushes you to write in a voice that is not necessarily yours, and you just have to keep on moving forward. The time pressure is always really nice. Anyways, I hope you learned something, and I hope that you can use this next time that you're feeling totally stuck and you just need to get the juices flowing. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for that, Grace. That was a lot of fun, and it's nice to have something interactive in the mix as well. I found whenever I was going through that, it was interesting to see whenever some of these messages were pulling from my own voice, being the latest one that I texted someone, or if it was the latest one I received from somebody else. And so it allowed to be a blur of my own voice with people I knew in my life. And so, in some ways, that felt comfortable, but also to the point that was in the chat earlier, I believe, yes, DMH, or I think, yes, DMH had said earlier that they're clueless. And also, I didn't know this person either. I had to figure it out. But I feel you, and that was a fun process. Thank you again. So, next up, we have Barry. Barry Wallace, are you nearby?
I am right here.
All right, thank you. So I was mentioning earlier with Grace that she is one of the two playwrights that we're working with this year. Barry, of course, is the other person here, and again, somebody who I was familiar with some of their work in the past and rereading some of it today, and it's really been a joy getting to work with you this year. One thing I want everybody to know is that each of you will be getting a public reading of the full-length play that you're writing later this year, probably in the fall. So if you're enjoying this process and enjoying these lessons you're getting, I hope you'll come back whenever those times are announced. Barry, let me bounce back to you. Are you ready to rock?
I'm ready.
Love it. I'm going to step away, and it is all yours.
All right. Thank you for Harrison for having me. My name is Barry Wallace. To give you a little quick background, I got a degree in theater from UT, and I've been director, music director, actor here in the Knoxville area for a couple of years. More than I can imagine, but I've always wanted to write. I love doing the theater work that I do, but I've always wanted to write things, and I've tried to write some short stories and things like that over time. I feel like I need a creative outlet. I need to create. I need to tell a story, and I tried to write some plays, but I found it very difficult to find the right inspiration for what to write. I like adapting things. I've adapted a children's book to a play, and I've done some biographical works, those kind of things. But I needed some inspiration. I needed to figure out how to find the things to write about. And Grace's section it was very similar to kind of what I was going to do. But I talked to Harrison a couple of years ago, and he suggested a challenge. So what I did was I went on my Facebook site and I created the playwriting challenge. This was 2 years ago, actually almost exactly 2 years ago, in February of 21. I challenged the people that I knew, my family and friends on Facebook, to give me an idea, to give me ideas of 10-minute plays. Just give me a title and a synopsis of a play, and I would write for them a 10-minute play based on their idea and synopsis. And I expected to get about 10. I ended up actually getting about 13 of them. So over the span of a couple of months, I wrote 10 and 13 plays based on these suggestions. And my only criteria for the folks that submitted them were that I would promise to get them done. I would give them a copy of it to read, and I would ask them to give me feedback to it, to let me know if they liked it, if they didn't like it, if they didn't, what they didn't like about it. So it was purely an instructive project that I was doing so I could learn more about the craft of writing plays, how to do characterization, how to do the start, middle, and ending, and all those kind of things. And I really had no particular idea on doing anything more with it. But as time went on, so I finished up the series of 13 short plays in May. In fact, I wrapped up actually taking a week-long sabbatical from my work, and I went to the very terrible, horrible place of the beach. and I had a hotel on the beach in Myrtle Beach, and I stayed there for a week, and I finished up all the rest of the plays. And it was very good creative energy to finish all of them up. I brought them all back. I submitted them to all of the people to read them, got good feedback, got some good creative ideas. And then Harrison, of course, again, he seems to be kind of always hovering over me in this creative process. He also suggested a couple of different things, different outlets for what I could do with these plays. One was an online production company in Nashville called the Pipeline Collective that does the Salon, which is a bi-weekly online play reading. I submitted my plays, and I've ended up having 4 of those 13 plays read online with a group of professional actors and directors, and got very good feedback from those, had a great time. And then there's another place called the New Play Exchange that Harrison turned me on to, and where you can store your ideas of your plays. They can be available to people that are looking for them. And also it's a clearinghouse for play festivals, for playwriters opportunities to write plays and enter them into the various festivals around the country. And they will do a search or a sort of match your play to what's going on in what they're looking for. And I happened to submit one of my plays to just sort of out of the blue, like, what this is a film festival in Utah, of all places, Provo, Utah. And as it turns out, of over 400 short plays that were submitted, mine was one of 10 finalists to be produced as a film. And this is last June, I believe it was. And that play was produced as a short film, and they had the film festival of all 10 finalists. And I was very fortunate enough for my play, for my film, to win best screenplay, best actor, best actress, and best production. So I was really blessed to be able to have the opportunity to take an idea that someone submitted to me. And in this case, the name of the play was called Black Balloons. And the synopsis of the play is that 3 people at a birthday party for someone they don't know. And that was all I got. And I ran from there to create that show. And as things just kind of keep snowballing sometimes, there was an actress that was in an online play that I did last year that right around as this was going on, she heard that I was involved in the film project and asked, she's in Ottawa, Canada, and was participating in the online play reading from Ottawa. And her production company, her play company or theater company up there was interested in it. And I actually had a first professional royalty sale to give them the rights, and they produced an online version of this show. So there's been an awful lot of different opportunities to take these plays that came from tiny nuggets of information that were just submitted to me off the cuff, off of Facebook, and turn them into not only exercises for playwriting, but fully realized, producible plays. So that has helped me immensely in finding inspiration for things that I want to do, for things that I want to write that aren't necessarily based on another work, which is where I kept coming from. I'll take this story, this book, and I'll write a play on it. And now I'm able to actually write fully developed plays. That has given me the confidence to write another play that is actually going to be workshopped in the next month or two in Chicago. It's a play called Snallygaster, which is based on an Appalachian folk tale. I got involved with that through a couple of other submit your play sort of randomly ideas. And we had a table read for that play last year. It was a whole 1 act. So it was 30 minutes long. And it had a wonderful table read, stage reading. It has a workshop in April, and hopefully moving towards a full production of that play later this year. So my conclusion would be, as I'm almost to the end of my time, my conclusion would be, if you are wanting to write, if you're wanting to be a playwright and you're having troubles finding just what to read, what to write about. Not everything can pull so deeply from within your gut and your experience that it's it's all the best of yourself. There are all kinds of stories available out there that can be found from ordinary situations. The plays that I did, the plays that I wrote as part of my challenge, did tend to be a little bit odd. I think in some cases, obviously, Black Balloons is about a group of people that never met each other before and are at a party where everything is black. The balloons are black, the presents, the cake, and they have to figure out what's going on. I also had a play about a couple that are divorcing and are having a custody battle over their cat. And that play is actually had been adapted through a friend of mine who I believe is on the call tonight, and added music to it. So it's in some stages of becoming a short musical. And another one was one about the synopsis was called "A white teenager from 1960s South Africa comes to America to be a maid and nanny, and she doesn't know that the family is black until they arrive." And that was the synopsis I got. And the name of the play was Reversal of Burdens. And I wrote a one short 10-minute play about that. And I really enjoyed it so much. I plan to eventually expand that into a full length. So if you're looking for inspiration, find it in the smallest, oddest little places by just asking people for suggestions and asking for a random title, a random idea, a random synopsis, and run with it and have fun. And don't be afraid to do something odd, because something really interesting can come from it. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Very much appreciate it. And I'm so proud of you for taking that advice. And, not everybody needs to take all the advice that I got. Sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. But for you in that situation, I'm so glad that you found it helpful. I just think a lot of writers can benefit from creating content faster. That way they're open for more festivals. And you never know what you're going to create until it's created. You also get somebody kind of on you that's waiting for something from you. And a writer can often benefit from a deadline. So you just never know those sorts of opportunities. I'm also impressed because the way that you handled that, with also including sending you a synopsis with the title, is super scary for me. I know when I did it, I just asked somebody for a title only, so that way I could try to finesse it whatever way I could. But for you to also take on the synopsis, that is extremely challenging, and that's awesome that you were able to do that. So I love that. And so, with that in mind, we're making good progress here. Really appreciate everybody's time here. We just got Deb to come in. Deb, are you available? So I'll explain for everybody while Deb is setting this up. Oh, there. Hello. And so, really glad to have you here. I'll go ahead and explain, if it's okay, real quick for you, Deb, that we're really glad that you're here. And Deb just got off a plane, so please forgive any sort of, you know, I know when I get off a plane, I'm not always where I want to be at. And so I'm really glad that you were able to get here at the time that you were able to, Deb. Also want to share for everybody, Deb was our playwright for 2021's production of Next Rung Productions. And I say production, excuse me. That was a digital reading that we did. And that was a really neat play. That was a 2-person family drama called Without a Map. And it was really a fascinating time getting to work on that. Some of you may have seen that. So, Deb, if you're ready, I am comfortable handing you the space and letting you take it over from here.
Okay. Yeah, sure. You can hear me okay, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I think there might be just a little bit of a delay because I am in nowhere, Alaska. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how I got to the point. I told you, or I told whatever, that I was going to talk about gender blind writing. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit of background. I've been an English teacher for a long time, but I've wanted to be a writer since I can remember in high school. And I've tried different forms of writing, but I'd never tried a play before until I would say 2019. I wrote a play for 2 friends, and I had Harrison sit in on a reading of that. He was pleasantly surprised. And so we talked about working. He asked me to apply, or told me about Next Rung and what they did, and I wanted to apply to the program. So I wanted to do another 2-person play. And I've done theater since 3rd grade. I've been in different productions. I always like working backstage more than I liked being on the stage. But I've never like tried to, before that one just kind of idea of writing a play, I've never really like sat down to really write a play before. And I've been a stage manager often. I've been a director a time or two. And what I really like, and what I've done ever since, I stage managed, directed, I always took, when I got the script and I would put it in a notebook, I would always mark out all the stage directions. And then that way I could, just have the dialogue there, and that would inform what I thought what things should look like. So I really wanted to write a 2-person play, but give the director and actors more freedom, so that it could be 2 women, it could be 2 men, or it could be a man and a woman, and a man or a woman could play either part, either the older sibling or the younger sibling. It didn't matter. Because I kind of had this idea that when we talk as family, there's not a lot of gender overhang or there. I didn't know that I was brother's male to tell, because I was wanted to do the gender blind, because I just thought it would be cool if a director, I can I could agree with that. I was really glad I had Harrison's help through the whole project. Or a couple of years ago, the way of, or if I know sometimes that maybe I'm coming at it from a female perspective, so it was great to have Harrison bounce things up and be able to talk to him about that. I don't know, maybe we need to dial that back and let's find a new way to phrase that. So I really appreciated that. It's probably not, if you guys look on a map for Roebuck, Alaska, you're not even going to believe where that is. So I am sure I'm the one with the bad signal. So yeah, I was very grateful to have Harrison as part of the process, so we could go back and forth. And I wrote it just listening. I don't know how it works. I just listen, and I could hear. I kept the scenario that my brother and I had gone through. However, my brother would, and that's kind of trying to listen. What would my brother say? And so that's the way I wrote it. And again, I had Harrison there to go, maybe that's not good. Maybe that's not right. So I don't know now. Has been second um necessarily so you look what was that? Like I do much enough buying them and going back and forth with that. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to wing it here because I'm sitting in I'm just sitting in an empty room right now. So is there anything anybody would like to ask? I'm really sorry about the internet connection, guys. I really am.
Let me jump in. I guess
Oh no.
while we're kind of working through this. Deb, I could still hear you, but it was weaving in and out. I believe what I last heard you say was that if you had, you're offering space now, if anybody had any questions about like gender blind roles at this time, was I hearing that correctly? Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just want
And
to.
I wasn't trying to, I do want to say I wasn't trying to be political and trying to ride the wave of people exploring gender. That wasn't the point. The point was I wanted a man or a woman to be able to play either role. So,
I understand. If anybody has any questions about that, it's a great space to. Um, otherwise, you had a part. I think we were talking about maybe talking about like twists in a show. We can allow you that space, or if you're not sure if the internet's coming through, we can move forward. I'm comfortable letting you go forward on this and see because I could hear you that last time we spoke.
oh, okay. Well, I mean, is it okay if I just let the cat out of the bag about the two twists?
Yeah, I mean it's your play. Do you mind spoiling people about your play?
Okay. I really don't. I really don't because I'm waiting. I don't know. I'm just there's a few things I need to fix before I start to get into some contests and stuff like that. But um, so both plays I had written had a twist that um that again the audience doesn't see coming. The one that I wrote with Harrison was it was about secrets, right? And family secrets and if you've kept a secret for 30 years, what does that do to a person? And then when that family secret is revealed, what does it do to the other sibling that didn't know the secret? And the secret was that the older sibling had accidentally killed their youngest sibling when he was like 4. Just kind of was playing with him and was holding his nose or whatever, and accidentally suffocated their younger brother. And but the death of the infant was ruled SIDS. So, but this person knew that they had done it and had known for actually not 30 years, more like 50 years, that they had done this thing and hadn't admitted it. And so we kind of had to set up a scenario like, why would this character suddenly admit this to a sibling? So we have mom dying and, talking about stuff and getting to that. But, through the whole first act, I've got the character that killed the younger sibling is just kind of torn. And, there's this whole, mom just died. So they're reminiscing about childhood issues, things that, hey, do you remember what happened? But, one of the characters is still a little uneasy. And then seeing what that kind of traumatic situation does to somebody over time. And so those two siblings are certainly in different places in their life because one of them knew and one of them did not. So it also affected their dynamic with the parents in the family as well. So that was my twist. And like I said, yeah, you just leave little hints, but I don't think anybody saw that coming quite. So, because there's something, but you don't know what. And that's not something anybody can ever imagine somebody doing. And that's not originally my idea. I actually got that off of a public radio program that I listened to 10 years ago. That somebody had actually done that as a child, accidentally, of course, but and hadn't admitted it to anybody in their family. And so I've always been fascinated by that idea of what does that do to a person over decades, and how does that affect their family dynamic? So, so that's where I got that idea. And I'm sorry about the internet connection.
You've been sounding so good ever since that last time we said it, and so it's just funny how the internet works.
Okay.
Yeah, no stress on that.
Yeah,
So thank
so,
you so much for that, Deb. Very much appreciate it. Yeah, having known some of your other work from before working together on the program, and then also whenever you joined the program, it's always been fascinating to see how you land a gut punch with your writing in that sort of way. You know how to plant seeds in an interesting way that then leads up to something that's just so hard to believe, but it makes sense in the moment. Um, it's really fascinating in that way. So love to see it. So thank you for
right.
sharing
Because
that.
there's nothing, to me, there's nothing worse than having a, can I cuss? I don't know if this is
It's recording, but
there's a
like
certain
also like
genre of
you.
movie.
Like, are you comfortable cussing on a recording? Go for
Sure.
it. Yeah.
There's a certain genre of movie that I call brain fuck. Like the whole movie is just kind of meant to mess with you. But then you have to have the payoff of why is this, do you know what I mean? And so if the payoff doesn't make sense or it's not satisfying, it's infuriating because you've spent this whole movie being confused, trying to figure out what's going on. And then when you get the payoff, it's bleh. And so that's why I don't want to leave too many hints because you know something's coming, you know, and so you're anticipating. But you need to leave some hints so that it's not completely out of left field. Like that makes no sense whatsoever. So, and if you want to know how to, I would, my favorite brainfuck movie of all time is Jacob's Ladder. I mean, it was one of Tim Robbins' early films. It's from the late 80s, I believe. But it's a fantastic film, Jacob's Ladder. So
I still need to see that. That's a nice recommendation to share out there for a resource on where to learn how to bring some of that out. That's awesome. All right.
right,
Well,
right.
thank you again for this. So at this point, I'm going to ask all of our playwrights to come up with the mics and cameras on. And here in just a moment, I'm going to ask the audience to do the same, and I'll allow permissions for you guys in just a moment. Before I do, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for everybody being here tonight. It really matters to be able to share what we hope is good information for our writers and also give space to ask the questions that you need to along the way as you continue building your craft. I do want to share with you a little bit of new play and local writer stuff happening in the town of Knoxville. I know some of you are coming from across the nation, but for the Knoxville specific people here, I do want you to know, first of all, the Tennessee Stage Company's new play festival is still going on. There will be 3 digital readings the next 3 Fridays, including what I mentioned earlier was Jeannette's play Cuba Libre. I believe that was the first full-length play you wrote after the Next Rung program. Jeannette, is that correct? Yes. Yeah, and that will be getting its digital reading on March the 10th. So you'll want to follow the Tennessee Stage Company. Keep an eye out for them. Full disclosure, I am on the Tennessee Stage Company board. From there, I do want you to know that the East Tennessee Writers Hall of Fame will be going on March the 24th at the Foundry. I bring that up because, one, they're going to be honoring a local playwright, the late Brandon Gibson. They're also honoring a 2-time Tony Award winner, Ashley Latimer, from Knoxville. And then also, you remember those quotes that I posted in the chat. 2 of those people, Betsy Pickle and Steve Wildsmith, are each getting honored there as well. So it's a great opportunity to be meeting various writers and to get involved with people who are just nailing it in that sort of way. And then I'm sorry that we missed the Word Players, but they also just had a world premiere as well. So I want to give them a shout out for working on new plays as well. Talking about shout outs, I do want to mention 2 Tennessee organizations that I know is working hard to share some additional press for us. Tennessee Playwright Studio, which is Nashville based, and then First Take Company, which is Knoxville based. I'm going to put their links in the chat. I know they shared our information in the newsletter and also with the story on Instagram, and just really appreciate seeing the unity of writers in this sort of way. Since we're talking about Instagram, I'm going to share one more thing. Next Rung Productions does have a new Instagram page, so I'm sharing that in the chat. Feel welcome to, I'm going to say, like and subscribe and smash that subscribe button, ring that bell.
Smash that button.
Yeah, that's it. All that stupid stuff that we know gets people to take action. Or else they wouldn't do it. But and even then, I'm not guaranteeing you're going to do it. But if you feel so inclined, we'd love to have you for it. And we're going to build that up and just have another venue for the people who are looking to follow new plays through Instagram instead of Facebook or YouTube and that sort of way. So right now it is 8:49 p.m. Eastern. We're looking to run a Q&A session for about 25-30 minutes here at this base. And I just want to open the floor, and I'm going to set it up where everybody can turn on their mics and their cameras. So no obligation to, but if you wish to participate, we're going to do this real casual. We're just going to talk and open the floor for questions you may have for us, questions that you may have that you brought into this that we didn't touch on, things along those lines. The floor.
Hey, Harrison,
Yeah.
this is Malcolm Glass. You got me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello.
Okay. First of all, I want to say what a wonderful evening this was. It was very informative and helpful. Secondly, I want to say, are the readings you just mentioned on your website? Is there a way we can connect to those readings that come up in March?
Great question. That will be with the Tennessee Stage Company, and I've not seen a posting for that yet. You should expect that to be posted as we get closer to the readings on that. I do know they will be Friday nights. I forget if they start at 7 or 8, maybe 7:30. I forget what time immediately on it, but it will be Friday nights on the 3rd, the 10th, and the 17th for 3 different plays. The 10th will be Jeanette's play, but you'll also on the 3rd.
Tennessee Stage Productions.
Tennessee Stage Company.
Company.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, great question. Great.
All right. I also want to commend Deb. I think the most important thing she said was right near the end where she said she wrote this play about the siblings without any sense that she was going to make a political statement or take a stand on an issue. She just wanted to give you the characters in the situation. And to me, that was the most important piece of advice of the evening. I think it's really hard to start with a concept. I think starting with a situation and characters is the way to go, and let them guide you through the process and lead you to the play you're trying to write.
It's really fascinating.
Into sermon.
Your sermon's welcome. Thank you. And I'll allow Deb to speak however she wishes to with that. I'll share it was really interesting to see how she developed it in that sort of way. And having written Gender Blind Roles in a way that did have something of a political intention before my own writing, I think it was really fascinating to see how Deb handled that for your own Deb. So got a lot to be proud of with that.
I'm in the dark.
Ah, hello.
I just saw the notice about the video. Didn't know it was there.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
And I just want to add a little something if I can.
Yes.
What really helped is for a number of years, I worked at the news station. And so there were a number of stories when I was an editor and I would edit video, and I would just see some of these tragic stories that of course never made it onto the news. But I kept them in the back of my mind. Like, what would that do to somebody to go through this kind of tragic? And so I tend to be more of a dark tragic, but try and find the humor and joy in tragedy kind of person. But I think honestly, watching the news or looking because honestly, that's what Edgar Allan Poe did. Edgar Allan Poe got the ideas for several of his short stories by reading the newspaper. So I think that's a great place to go for story ideas.
Yeah.
That's great. And it's amazing to see, like, if you're ever looking for inspiration, the news has something every day. You just never know if it's what you're looking for or not. But fascinating way to look at it. All right. Who else has questions or comments? We're open to space for anybody. It's a pretty casual thing here.
Hello. I have a comment I'd like to make here.
Yes, Dan.
I'll let you see my ugly face here. There we go. I just wanted to say I'm Dan, and I'm a theatrical composer, and I'm the guy who's adapting Barry's play into a short musical that he mentioned a while ago. So, yeah, that's me.
That's amazing.
Yay, Dan.
Let me ask you this: since you're adapting with a play right now, I will make the Q&A about you for just a quick second here, if I may. What are you looking for whenever it comes to adapting a play? Because I believe Barry had created one and then sent it to you. Is this your first time doing that, or what are you looking for when you do things?
Yeah, well, this was one of his short plays, so those are much easier to adapt.
That's
You
cool.
know, the play he sent me was just very full of humor and full of crazy things going on. And so I just kind of latched onto that. And I influenced him a little bit because he, as he said, it's about a couple that's divorcing and they're in court for custody of the cat. And so I said to Barry, I'd really like to have the cat sing a song. Can we like
Yeah.
the cat with a human so the cat can get up and so I wrote this big number for the cat at the end. And I don't know, it just spoke. That one just spoke to me, and I had to go with it.
Are you writing the lyrics as well? Or is Barry writing the
Yes.
lyrics?
No, I
You're
wrote.
writing-
Yeah, I've got one more song to go on it. I've written 2 songs for it. I've got one more to go, and that's enough for a very short musical.
Yeah, Dan and I have known each other for many, many years.
Yes.
And we have collaborated on a couple of other of his productions. I've helped him out on some writing and some composing and lyrics and those kind of things. So we've been kind of doing some of these things for a long time, and I think we know each other's thoughts and we work pretty well together. So I was really happy to kind of toss this in his lap and see what he could come up with, and was very happy to get the results that I have gotten so far. I'm anxious to hear the third song that comes in.
Well, this session is inspiring me to get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just reworking a play with songs from years ago, and it's got a dog that sings. So if you're interested,
I hear sequel.
it's a dog that sings and dances.
This panel has quickly become cats and dogs.
Well, it's interesting because the short play, as I wrote it, the cat does speak at the very end after all the craziness is over, and it's the speech that he has is actually very straight and dramatic, but Dan's collaboration has like, let's rethink this a little bit. Maybe we can improve the overall narrative by this song. And so I love the way Harrison, you talked about with co-writing. I think that collaboration process, the give and take, hopefully, ideally, every little give and take will improve the play just a little bit, so that there's a blending of talents and creativity. And it's great when you want to write a play all by yourself, but especially with right now working with you on the full length. I'm glad to be able to bounce ideas off of somebody so that it's all not taking place within one mindset or one perspective, because my perspective to me is awesome. But if somebody else reads it or somebody else sees a performance of it, they might think, "What? That makes no sense. I don't understand." So being able to really bounce that off, either with a collaborator like a musician or a mentor or somebody like that, I think it really makes it a lot easier and a lot better product at the end.
That's what it comes down to. Sometimes just trying to find those little battles of building up along the way. Sometimes it's the script that really stands out. Sometimes it's the story that really stands out. But if you've got the story, then you improve on the script in that sort of way, right? And that's what you can build up on in that sort of way. I do think this allows me to segue into one of the questions that was asked early in the chat whenever I was giving my lesson earlier. There was a question in the chat that asked, how did you decide who's writing what? Did you collaborate on each scene together? That sort of way. And I think this kind of ties into the conversation you guys had, and I want to hear from you, but I'll share with my experience first. Whenever Carlin and I was writing Raft, that was very much just a back and forth. Both of us was writing both characters all the time in that sort of way. And both of us were editing the script at all times. It would just kind of depend on what we felt like that day, because we were in daily communication anyway. I would share my opinion is that I was probably 55-ish% editing and probably 45-ish% creating I imagine it's a little bit of a reversal for Carlin, but it's an estimate, right? The point is we're still putting in equal effort. We just had to find our ways with it. We're both constantly involved, reading it out loud, reading it quietly to ourselves, rereading the work, and then kind of updating the other people about like, hey, I made this change. What do you think? Cool. All right, moving on. And just a lot of that. We knocked it out in about 5 weeks, I'm guessing, for the first draft before it started getting done in places. For Dan and Barry, let me ask you, how do you describe that collaborative process between you two?
Well, we haven't actually had a chance to touch on it for a few months, but Dan lives in California, and I'm here in Knoxville, so it's a lot of we talk by email or text, or we'll do a video chat from time to time, or just talk on the phone, and I kind of go over what I like about it or what I think is the point of the play, and he reads it, and then he's able to come up. Okay, here's what this character is trying to say. Let's see what we can have them say in musical form. And Dan, you want to elaborate more about what happens when you get the script and what you come up with there?
Well, in the case of this play, we really didn't collaborate that much. I mean, Barry wrote the play and he sent it to me. He actually sent all of his 13 plays to me, and I read through them. Mm-hmm. And that was the one that I could just, my imagination just started going wild when I read the cat play. And so I just started writing some songs for it. And I said, hey, Barry, what do you think of this? Unfortunately, he was all for it and just said, yeah, that's great. And so we didn't really set out to collaborate. It just sort of happened spontaneously. And I always find that the things that pop up, the ideas that pop up spontaneously like that, for me at least, those are my best ones.
Yeah, it's fun when all of these different plays that I wrote as part of my challenge have kind of all gone off in different directions. It's like, all of a sudden there's cats everywhere. Stop, come back. Some have been really, like I said, have been really productive and had a lot of success with. Others I've had critical success, or I've really felt good about them. Others haven't gone anywhere. They just exist because they were an exercise and they were fun, and the person that I wrote them for enjoyed them. But there's having all kinds of different versions of them and different ideas where they came from, and one becoming a musical because of course, and one of them's an iambic pentameter, and one of them is, all this kind of thing. Different ideas, different ways to find what is my writing style that I'm most comfortable in, and that was a big help in writing 13 different ones and finding different ways to write 13 different stories.
You learn about yourself going through that process. Since we're talking about that process and also cats, I'm going to share that one of the titles that I got was from my grandmother. Rest in peace. We'll miss you, Mama Scott. And the title she had given me was Grandma's Death Dish. She originally gave me the title Grandma and Her Cat, and then she changed it to Grandma's Death Dish. So I wrote a play about a cat funeral, and it's a comedy despite everything I just said, and a lot of fun. But you just never know where these things will draw you. You just do what you can with the inspiration given to you, because you're seeking inspiration. Fine, you got it. What are you going to do with it? So that's sometimes how that cookie crumbles. Let me ask everybody this with the panel. I really appreciate everybody being here. I had one preloaded question. I kind of want to hear from everybody on this. For the writers on this panel, I want to ask you, when do you find that you're writing your best?
Time of day of the week, time of the year.
Great question. So I don't necessarily mean, I write my best in the fall, unless that's like sincerely true for you, right? But I'll start with answering. The way I'm intending to ask this question is like, I find that I'm producing my highest caliber work whenever I'm just out of my own mind and I'm creating in a role. If I'm getting like one line at a time per day or, per evening, what have you, I don't find that's always my strongest writing. But if I find that I'm creating like 2 pages straight without much of a stop, I find there's a certain cohesion there for me that generally leads to what gets recognized as stronger work of mine. And I didn't know if any other writers here had that experience or other things that made them feel like, oh, okay, this is when I'm creating my stronger content.
I'd like to respond to that. I find that I write best when I'm not trying to write.
Mhm.
When I get just that first germ of an idea, and then I just kind of let it spin around in my head, and before I know it, I've constructed whole scenes around it without even trying to. And I have some really bizarre ideas when I do that, but usually they're my best ones because they're more original when I do that.
Mhm.
So that sounds like an inspiration type deal, and that's fantastic to know that. Once you start putting that onto black and white paper, do you find that it just all flows out real comfortably for you at that point, or do you find that there are moments in that where it ebbs and flows?
Yeah, ebbs and flows. There's sometimes the great times are when it just flows out, and I've got whole pages written without even trying. That usually it starts out being easy, and then as I get more and more into it, I'm like I have to think more about it, and I have to make some changes to it and whatnot. And I just do that until my head gets bogged down in it, and then I take a break. And sometimes the problems I'm trying to solve when I'm working on it, when I take a break and get it out of my head, that's when suddenly they work themselves out, or my head works it out. So I've kind of come to trust that process. I write songs that way too. This depends on the situation. Sometimes I have to force something out of my head because we need a scene here, we need a song here, whatever. And then other times I just quit trying, and it just something comes out, and it's usually better than when I was trying.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I have to let things cook. And so if I have an idea of the next scene, then I can write it. And then I'll have to go away and wait till the next scene works itself out in my head. And then I can put it on paper.
That's great.
I find that if I just practice writing, like literally set a timer for 30 minutes, and I just put the ballpoint pen on the piece of paper, and I just write, and I'm not looking back and checking my work. I'm just writing for 30 minutes straight. All of a sudden, I've wet my whistle, or I've like exercised the muscle, and whenever I can immediately apply that into whatever scene I'm working on or whatever. So if I'm just writing in my own voice, I practice that for 30 minutes, and then all of a sudden I do have the ability to write in a voice that isn't mine. Because I think it is very hard to start in the middle of something that you don't quite see yet. It's a muscle, just like anything.
That's fascinating. Love it.
Bingo.
That's a great exercise too, to be able to just write anything at all beforehand. For you, it's you and your voice. I don't know if it's necessarily like journaling or like word vomit or what, different exercises in that sort of way. But the point is, you're spewing words out, and then you jump into it later after that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It can't be pretty. 90% of this is not going to be pretty, and you have to let that go. I have to let that go.
Not all of it should be pretty, so that's okay too. Anybody else on this?
I was gonna say I write better in the morning when it's dark outside. Like if I can get up really early in the morning, because if there's light outside, that's distracting to me. If it's outside, or if I get and it's like I don't try and go back to sleep, I try and write it down. And it's really interesting to talk about writing in order, because I actually don't write in order. This is what I get to where I am, and how do I write the scene that I want to get to in order to tell me how I'm going to get from where I am to that scene. And so I'm not sure, Harrison, if you're a sequential writer or not, but I do remember that being a thing, like us discussing, like, well, I wrote this scene that's going to be in Act 3, but because that's what came to me at the time, and it was like, okay, then I had all these pieces from around the play, and then I was writing the connecting tissue for all those little pieces, and that's kind of how I worked mine. And I have to say, being a teacher for a long time and being a writing teacher, and the advice to write every day, I don't find as helpful for me, actually, because I feel like if I write, and I've tried to write every day, I promise you, but I feel like I'm stuff that's not very good. And if I just wait, I might be driving, I might be sitting in the backyard, and suddenly it's like it's there, and that's so much better writing. I do have a tendency to write better when I'm not working, like if I'm on vacation. I remember like exactly where I was in Savannah when I wrote my favorite part of the play that I did a couple of years ago with Harris. So yeah, I do better when my brain is fully engaged in other things, and I do better when it's dark and not distracting. So
It's fascinating.
that's my thing.
Different philosophies going on because everybody's just finding the one that works for them in that sort of way, and that's always amazing to see. Sherridan,
Right.
you were trying to say something a moment ago. Was that correct?
Yeah, well, and it's interesting what Deb was saying and what Grace was saying. Like, I am a sequential writer, but it doesn't have to be in sequence of my play. And so, like, one of the things that I did during home base that was helpful was to write. I wrote a scene that I didn't intend to use in the play, and then I did. I edited it to be in the play. But I did a little like just like character work, because it was like, what would the dialogue have been like between these people in high school? And does that inform my today scene? So it was like going into the past helped me come back and do my sequential current situation. And it was really, yeah, very helpful to do that.
I love it. And I find myself being a generally sequential writer as well. To Deb's point, I've had the good fortune to get to work with multiple playwrights throughout this program. And whenever I first worked with Jeannette, I found for the play that we're writing, maybe not always, right? But for Mutation, that seemed sequential at that time. And me being a general sequential writer, then when I worked with Deb for the first time, I had my brain kind of warped in a way. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to be a mentor here, but also like this is new to me. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about me learning stuff along the way. And this is also one of the reasons why I wanted to have a panel where everybody could share a little bit of their insight as a writer, because everybody's got their way. I don't have all the answers, neither does any single playwright. But I hope between the 6 of us that are here today that each of you come away with something that's helpful for you in that way. We got about 3 minutes left before we're going to close up. Let me ask you guys this. Does anybody want to share any of their writing exercises that Grace had earlier?
No.
I'll share my favorite text. I wrote, George just vomited. And it was great. It was very helpful.
And maybe sometime that will show up in your work.
Well, my favorite text that I wrote was, well, next time you get to change the litter box.
Nice. See, there's so much baked into, like, you can already build the character. You can imagine what's going on in just a few words. And then you just kind of follow that trail.
I noticed through the 10 that I'd selected, I was like, oh man, I was just going down the list of like the most recent of 10 different people or whatever. And I was like, man, all of these are ending almost always positively or whatever. So I had to kind of figure out from your exercise. I was like, well, which line of these do I hate the most? True. I hate true the most out of these 10. So, I had to figure that out. And then just piece together what a character whose favorite text message would be, good Lord, yes, please, and we'd love to have you, but hates true. What does that mean? I'm trying. But yeah, it's just interesting to try to think for a moment, who does this create in that sort of way?
Right. Great.
Are all of these plays available to read?
As far as the plays from Next Rung Productions, is that what we're asking, Greg?
Yes, yes, the ones I've heard
Great.
about tonight.
Yeah, great question. So, first of all, you can always email me for the rights. I can follow up with any of these playwrights here about getting one of these scripts if we want to follow up on that. Also, I will share that our website, which I'll post in the chat right here, does have links to have the videos of the 3 that have been done. So, not necessarily the script, but the public reading was recorded for each of those 3. So, I'm posting that in the chat right here in a second. So what you could do is if you go to that page and then you go to mentorships and move your mouse over it, if you're on your laptop, then you'll see 2020 mutation, 2021 without a map, 2022 home base. And at the bottom of each of those pages, you're going to see a video for it. And that's going to be what the public performance is like. In addition, you're going to see other fascinating things like the bio for the playwright. You're also going to see a quote about what their experience was when creating it. You're going to see some audience feedback. There's a lot of good information on there, and also testimonials as well for each one of those pages. But the video will be at the bottom for each of those.
Have you all ever had a 10-minute play festival where you did a 10 or so?
Great question. We have not at this time. No, this program originally was built around helping a playwright create a full-length play within a year. That said, Barry was emphasizing a lot of the shorter play emphasis in the works and the value of it, and that's where a lot of my experience was as well. There is a great value to that. I've been a part of some 10-minute play festivals, like with Tiger Lily Theater, which is now unfortunately defunct, but they've done some great work where they had an annual night of shorts. And if we find that there is enough need in the community to try to bring that back, and if we get enough support to be able to do something like that, I'll share that. I would love to be able to consider that. I know that's a difficult thing to do on top of everything else we're doing, but also I'm all for banding together with the right people to help make that happen if that's what it takes to do something like that. We just need to see that the interest is
10-minute plays are a challenge, unlike a 2-act. It's really, really tough sometimes.
It most certainly is. And so this program will largely try to focus on helping the creation of a play. Now, that said, there are special events like tonight where we're trying something new of a writer's panel. This is our first time doing something like this. Also, last year we did do a special event based off of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and we allowed people to create short scenes and monologues based off that. And so in that sort of way, there was space for some shorter works being created in that way as well. We haven't necessarily done a festival, so to speak, but we've tested the waters in those ways.
There seem to be more festivals and contests for short works than there are for long works.
I think so.
It's fascinating to see, and I'm glad to see those opportunities out there for people. It's a great way for a theater to, one, have a variety of new plays, and also get a lot of people involved, not just for actors, but also playwrights, and not just for playwrights, but then also the audiences for each of those people to bring. So if you like a theater that can bring in people, a lot of times those festivals can do it. That just also means with many people comes many responsibilities and balancing of things. And so it just has its challenges along the way, but there's certainly a value there.
If you are in Knoxville, you should see the mountaintop at River and Rail. It is amazing.
I'm looking forward to seeing.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, River and Rail is a theater in Knoxville, Tennessee. Malcolm, I don't know if you're in the Knoxville area or not. Forgive me.
Okay.
But they're a local theater that does quality work in that sort of way. And I believe the last show I saw of theirs was The Wolves, which had Grace in it and did a great job. So, just a love. Great work going on in the Knoxville area.
Yeah, that was wonderful. That was great. Which number were you, Grace?
25, the team captain.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh man. At this point, unless there's any other last minute questions, I'll give that space real quick. Does anybody have any other questions before we close shop for the evening?
I just wanted to say I did post a list or link to the 13 plays if anybody's interested in reading them.
Outstanding.
Oh, thank you.
All right. And so, on that note, I say let's go ahead and wrap it up here. I'd like to thank everybody that came out and stuck around for the evening. So, thank you so much for coming. I hope you each learned something and have something that you could take away and be able to benefit from in that sort of way. Next Rung Productions will continue doing what we do best, and that is helping writers build up. And you can look forward to Barry and Grace each creating their works and having a public, probably table reading, maybe a Zoom reading. We'll see as we get closer. Probably in the late summer, early fall, somewhere in that range. And we will build from there. And of course, you can always follow our Facebook page or our Instagram page that's new to be able to continue catching up on the latest news. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to ask the playwrights to stick around for a minute that were on the panel. Everybody else, I'm going to start politely booting people if you don't go ahead and get out of here. But thank you. I sincerely mean it. I hope you
Very
have
good. Thanks.
Thank you.